On July 27, 2026, Carly Simon broke 8 years of silence. Not with a performance, not with an interview, with a letter written to her fans, in her own words, about what the last 8 years actually looked like behind closed doors. She has Parkinson's disease, she had cancer removed from her face, she lost both her sisters in consecutive days. And through all of it, she made an album at 83 years old. She made an album. On July 27, 2026, Carly Simon published a statement addressed directly to the fans who had been writing to her for years, wondering where she had gone. So many people have written to me, kindly wondering about my relative silence, asking how I am and what I have been doing, she wrote. The truth is, I've been learning how to live with Parkinson's disease. She said it had taken her time. Time to understand it, time to adjust, time to decide how much she wanted to say. Parkinson's is different for everyone, and it can be unpredictable. Some days I'm so tired I can't get the day moving at all. On others, it gives me a little more room to move, think, work, and feel like myself. No drama, no performance, just honesty. In the voice of someone who has spent her entire adult life turning her inner world into language, and found that she still could. Despite everything, she told fans, I have not stopped living and I have not stopped working. 8 years of silence. And she never stopped. Before we go any further, let's talk about who Carly Simon actually is. Because the full picture matters. Carly Elizabeth Simon was born June 25, 1943, in New York City. Her father, Richard Simon, was the co-founder of Simon & Schuster, one of the most powerful publishing houses in American history. Her mother, Andrea, was an activist and singer. She grew up in Riverdale in the Bronx with her siblings, 2 older sisters, Joanna and Lucy, and a younger brother, Peter. Music was the air in that household. She began singing at around age 8, initially as a way to overcome a stutter, and soon started writing her own songs on the ukulele, taught to her by her uncle, a jazz aficionado. She enrolled at Sarah Lawrence College, but left to pursue music with her sister Lucy. The Simon sisters performed folk music in small clubs on the East Coast, and Carly's own solo career began to take shape in the early 1970s. Her debut single, That's the Way I've Always Heard It Should Be, arrived in 1971, followed by Anticipation the same year. In 1971, she won the Grammy for Best New Artist. Then, 1972. You're So Vain. The most intriguing mystery in pop music history, a song whose subject she has never officially confirmed, became one of the defining cultural moments of the decade. It went to number 1. It made her a household name, and it has never fully left the conversation. In 1988, she became the first artist in history to win an Oscar, a Grammy, and a Golden Globe for a single song she wrote and performed herself, Let the River Run, from the film Working Girl First. In history. That's who she is. She was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1994 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022. Now, here's where the story shifts. And it shifts hard. In the span of 2 consecutive days in October 2022, Carly Simon lost both of her sisters. Joanna Simon, mezzo-soprano, opera singer, the eldest, died on Wednesday of thyroid cancer at age 86. Lucy Simon, Broadway composer, Carly's former musical partner in the Simon Sisters, died on Thursday of breast cancer at age 82. 1 day apart. 2 sisters. Gone, Carly had once described Joanna's voice as magical, far better than mine, and Lucy was the woman she first stepped onto a stage with. The woman who taught her what it felt like to make music with someone who knew you completely. Her younger brother Peter had died in 2018 from cardiac arrest while battling lung cancer. In the space of 4 years, she lost all 3 of her siblings. Every person who shared her childhood, every person who knew the version of her that existed before any of the fame. She was said to be in deep mourning. She made no public statement. She disappeared. And now we understand what she was carrying during those years of silence. Carly Simon's description of living with Parkinson's is one of the most honest and specific accounts of the disease that anyone has put into public words. Most people associate Parkinson's with tremors and movement difficulty, and those are real. But what Simon describes goes deeper. She wrote about the apathy, which she called one of the hardest things to explain. She described it as lying there like a starfish drying in the sun, arms pointing in all directions, while nothing inside is telling you to get up, read, watch, write, sing, call someone, or do much of anything at all. A starfish drying in the sun. That image is devastating precisely because it's so accurate. Not sadness, not laziness. A neurological absence of the signal that tells you to begin. The engine's still there, but something cutting the ignition. The problems actually began earlier, with arthritis in both knees and one hip, which eventually required all 3 joints to be replaced. Surgery after surgery. Recovery after recovery. And then the Parkinson's diagnosis landing on top of all of that. Then came the basal cell carcinoma, a form of skin cancer, on her face. The cancer was removed, but the surgery left marks. And for a woman who wrote "You're So Vain" while privately being more self-critical of her own appearance than anyone around her ever realized, those marks became another reason to stay out of sight. She wrote, "I have always been more critical of my appearance than anyone else could possibly imagine. Check out the irony of having written 'You're So Vain.' And this gave my inner critic quite a lot of new material." The irony. She saw it. She named it. She still has that wit, and that self-awareness completely intact. Here's the part that took everyone's breath away. While she was navigating Parkinson's, recovering from cancer surgery, grieving the loss of all 3 of her siblings, and managing a physical body that was no longer cooperating the way it once had, Carly Simon made an album. The album is called "Comes in Waves." It is scheduled for release on August 14th, 2026. Variety, she said, "Working on the music gave shape to days that did not always have much shape. It gave me somewhere to go without having to leave the room. It reminded me that illness can change your life without becoming the whole of your life. That line. Illness can change your life without becoming the whole of your life." That is not a quote from a person who has given up. That is the philosophy of someone who decided deliberately, quietly, on her own schedule, that there was still something worth creating, still a reason to sit down and make something out of the chaos. She didn't release an album because the industry asked her to. She made it because the music gave her somewhere to go. Because the work reminded her that she was still here. And she is. "I have learned to accept that every day will look a little different," she said. "But I am still very much here." 8 years of silence. And that's what she came back to say. Not goodbye, not an explanation, not an apology, just "I am still very much here." She chose her own moment. She decided what to share. She wrote it herself. And she announced a new album in the same breath as the diagnosis, not as a distraction from the hard news, but as proof that the hard news doesn't get to write the ending. She told people, "Between my mobility issues, the Parkinson's diagnosis, the surgery, and the emotional effects of it all, withdrawing from public view was the most palatable reaction." She added, "If a person is allowed to hibernate during both winter and summer, then I have taken full advantage of that right." She used the word hibernate. That's not defeat. That's wisdom, knowing when the world is too much and giving yourself permission to step back from it, and then stepping back in when you're ready. She was ready. Carly Simon is 83 years old. She has 2 Grammys, an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. She wrote songs that defined a generation's understanding of longing, desire, betrayal, and self-awareness. She overcame a stutter to become one of the most distinctive voices in American music. She survived stage fright severe enough to keep her off stages for years. She outlived 3 siblings. She navigated Parkinson's and cancer and grief and the slow, relentless work of physical decline, and she made an album about all of it. The mystery of "You're So Vain" remains unsolved. She still hasn't said, Probably never will. And somehow, at 83, that remains one of the great unanswered questions in pop music. The woman who wrote it is still here, still holding the secret, still making music, still insisting on her own terms. She said, "Illness can change your life without becoming the whole of your life." ABC News, that's the line to hold on to. Not as comfort, as testimony. From someone who has earned the right to say it. Carly Simon didn't need to tell us any of this. She could have stayed quiet. Let people wonder. Let the silence speak for itself. She chose to explain. To give language to what silence looked like from the inside. To tell fans who had been writing to her for years, "I heard you. I was here. I was just learning how to live with something new." And then she told them a new album was coming. That's not a comeback. That's Carly Simon being exactly who she has always been. Someone who turns the hardest things into something you can hear. We're glad she's still here.